The number one priority of even above training is sleep. If you don't sleep well, not only are your hormones all jacked up, but your cravings are going to be through the roof. It becomes extremely difficult to eat healthy when all you're craving is carbs and fatty and fried foods, which happens when you lack sleep. Sleep is also the only time that your body can fully prioritize recovery. So whether that means you're sick, whether that means you're like you just crushed a gym session and your body needs to rebuild all that muscle, and it needs to, really prioritize building and recovering. I mean, sleep is the number one time that your body can fully just take care of itself. And if you don't take care of your sleep, not only will it become a lot harder to lose fat, but it'll also be a lot harder to choose the right foods that will lead you in that direction.
Meghan Hayden, welcome to Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. I'm excited to dive into this conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to just dive right in. Let's just go into the deep end, because I really want to get into the conversation with you about a sustainable approach to health and wellness. And I know this is your expertise and really what you try to focus on. So you are a New York-based strength and conditioning coach, and you've spent most of the bulk of your life in training and doing sports and coaching others to be at their top physical performance. So I'd love to know, what do you feel is the biggest struggle for somebody obtaining, most importantly, sustaining their fitness and health goals?
I think it's sometimes hard to always stay motivated, and you have to think that training is a lifelong journey. You can't think that training is just for an event or just to get yourself out of a rut, or maybe you get a wake up call from a doctor that says you need to start prioritizing yourself, and you want to do it for a little bit and you kind of drop off. So I think that the hardest thing for someone to stick with it the whole time is, one, staying motivated, but also if you get stuck in the same routine over and over again, one, your body might get used to it and plateau, or you might just get bored of it. So I think what's fun is that, I've been coaching for 8 years and I was an athlete all leading up to that. But even just throughout my coaching journey, I've tried so many different styles of training, and I've tried to learn from so many different methodologies and kind of like dive into different specialties. And one, it keeps things fun and interesting, but two, it allows you to kind of pick what you love and what you want to, continue doing for a while, and kind of allows you to push past plateaus and keep things interesting, I guess. So yeah, I'd say one, maybe just dropping off and staying or being inconsistent is a big pitfall. But I think through like finding community, I think fitness is a massive thing where you need to have a support system. You need to have people that are doing it with you or on the same journey as you for you to really, be a part of it and continue going, but also having fun with so many different things and trying different variations and different styles, and keeping it interesting.
Yeah. As they say, motivation isn't necessarily lasting, but people always ask that question, like, how do I stay motivated? So what should they be focusing on instead?
I think one, like having a goal setting and just having something that they really want to work towards. It's kind of like when the motivation dips and you remember that you have that goal. And I think setting a time for when you want to achieve it is also very helpful, because then it's something that it's kind of always in the back of your head. I think even signing up for something is a big thing, because you got to get ready at that point, unless you want to drop out. So if you want to be able to tackle that competition or that race and really perform at your best, then that's kind of gets you out of bed or into the gym when you might not be feeling like you want to, or when you feel like you are at the fitness level that you can just maintain and take a back seat, or yeah, I think it allows you to kind of push past what you want to do and realize that you have a job that needs to be done and that you got to, perform well.
Putting skin in the game. Like they say, if you
Exactly.
don't invest in it, then like if something is free, like there's many free challenges. And that, the idea of it sounds really great. And I think people get excited and they get into it. But usually, if you don't invest in something, there's not that pressure to perform, if you want to say, stay committed to it. And so I think it's great to, like you said, sign up for something, at least that's a good way to get your foot into the door. And then creating a community, I think, is really great. Like being around other people that inspire you to like stay in it, I think
Totally.
is super.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you were to have someone that tells you to do it like a work assignment in school and you had all the time in the world to do it, you'd either, unless you're super driven, super motivated, and you want to get it done right away, like you might take your time doing it. You might not do it to the best of your ability. You'll take whatever shortcuts and stay comfortable. But if you have someone that's literally looking on top of your piece of paper and being like, do this now, and I'm going to stay with you until you do it, then you will have to do it right then and there. And you're going to want to, like, if you're getting graded or you have someone who's really looking over it, it will really force you to dial in. That's why, like, having a coach and having a nutritionist, no matter how much you know about your health and fitness and you even have a goal, if you have someone watching you and staying there with you the whole way through, you're gonna have to put your all into it, and you can't hide, right? So I think, like you just said, a community is a huge part of it, and having a support system, but having someone who's really there, like a coach, like in anything that I try to learn that's new, even outside of fitness, I always try to hire a coach, because not only do they teach you so much and you can learn and expand your knowledge of that topic, but you're also totally held accountable. So really putting the reps in and having someone that's on top of you is definitely helps you succeed way more than if you're just kind of doing it free balling on your own.
Absolutely. And I think the other important thing when it comes to a coach is also somebody else looking at your form. Because I think that's one thing when I'm at the gym, I always look at people's form and I want to be like tapping on their shoulder. I'm like, and not like I'm not a trainer, but I've been training my whole life. So I've also learned form and how to engage the muscle being worked. And so I think what's great about having a coach is they're able to make sure you're using the muscle correctly so you don't have injuries and whatnot. And so based on that, I want to talk about functional training, because I think this is a key thing that all of us should be doing today or focusing more on, because the functionality and being able to be flexible and mobile into our 90s is so key today. And so I would love to know from you, what is functional training, number one, and what are some key moves that we should be doing to ensure that we have functionality going into our late years?
I mean, I think functional training is just essentially movements that carry over really well into life and your daily activities. That could be as easy as squatting to a bench, which can be how you train for going to the bathroom or sitting on a couch. I mean, even just walking, or when you think about functional movement, you have to think about like very foundational and like basic movement patterns. So like a squat, a split squat, a lunge, a step up, and doing those in different directions, because not everything is forward and back, but life is three-dimensional. So working your frontal plane and moving side to side and working rotation as well. For upper body, that could be pressing something overhead, just like you would put something in a high cupboard, or like if you're traveling, putting something in the overhead bin in the plane. It could be pushing up off the floor, just like a push-up, or pushing something off of you. God forbid you're stuck under something and you need to get it off of you. You have to just think of any movements that you would perform in day-to-day life. If you want to get nitpicky about it, you can even think about what would you do on like a move-in day, lifting your couches or lifting boxes and moving things from side to side. I think functional movement is really just preparing the body and working the body in ways that mimic daily movements, but with load, or without load. But training it with load really allows you to understand the mechanics of then carrying that into something that isn't, what we lift in the gym is very, I would say, it's very specific to the movement that you're doing, right? You you pick up a kettlebell and it's nice and it's compact and you can keep it tight to the body and you can control it. But then when you lift a medium sized, very heavy cardboard box, it's very different and awkward and whatever. So being able to lift a bunch of different things in different ways, I would say also carries over and can be considered functional training, but ultimately just it's not very high skill based. It's more of just, what can you do to be a little bit more independent in daily life and help others as well.
It's so great. Yeah, it's absolutely key to carrying everything into our life going forward, basically. So we don't, like, when something does happen, at least we have the strength to be able to perform everyday tasks. So I think it's so key. You mentioned kettlebells, and I would love to know, what do you think is the plus or minus using a kettlebell opposed to a dumbbell? Like, what would be the benefit of using one or the other, and how do you explain that to, if somebody was going to, do exercise in the gym, when would they use a kettlebell opposed to a dumbbell?
Yeah. Kettlebells have hit a massive popularity, mainly I think in the pandemic. And I think that was mainly because they are the most versatile piece of equipment in the gym. Dumbbells can be exchanged for a lot of kettlebell movements and vice versa. However, it's just a very versatile piece of equipment that you can gain strength with. You can move well with in explosive movements and strength movements and mobility movements. Kettlebells are one, you can flip the kettlebell upside down and work the stability of your wrist. And that's something that you can't do a lot with dumbbells, but you can work a lot of your wrist stability I really can't say enough good things about kettlebells, just because I was one of those people. I just got my kettlebell certification right before the pandemic. So not only was I like super into that kettlebell mindset, but then all I had throughout the pandemic was a pair of 12 kilogram kettlebells and 16 pair of kettlebells. And then it grew to a pair of 20 kilogram and then higher. And I just ended up with like this family of kettlebells and had so much fun with them. But I think there's more movements that can be performed with a kettlebell than a dumbbell. Again, so many moves can be interchangeable. They're free weights. So they're an amazing way to get creative with your body and space, whether it be with a small amount of load or a heavy amount of load. They can replace a barbell. They can replace a dumbbell. They can replace a lot of things. So I think just its versatility is what's so great about it. However, there is like a definite skill requirement that's needed to work with them. So even though they're extremely popular and everyone wants to work with them, I think that they're a device that definitely needs to be coached or like helped in terms of like getting acquainted with it and the movements that you can do with them. But outside of that, I think it's just a great tool to use.
Amazing. I would love to know for foam rolling. I don't know if you do this with your clients, but would you say that foam rolling should be done before a workout, after, or it could be interchangeable for the benefits? And why should we be foam rolling?
Yeah, I use it foam roller for a lot of different like applications. One, if you are so tight and you just feel like your muscle like doesn't even want to stretch, you have to think that for your muscle to contract, it needs to be able to stretch. And some people who are very, very tight, you might need to open that up before you even start using it. Otherwise, it might not have anywhere to go to contract, and then you're not really using that muscle. So sometimes if I'm very tight or sore, I'll foam roll to one, get some nice circulation moving, bring some blood flow to that area, but also to loosen up the tissue and make it a little bit more pliable and expandable. So that's one way that you can use it pre-lift and just to like start to stimulate the muscle. You can use it for recovery to, again, like they're great for aiding circulation and just getting good flow throughout the muscle tissue. As tissue gets tight, it gets very compact, and then it's hard for like waste products to move through, and and for all the things that happen that help you recover. So foam rolling can be great for after workout to really just help jumpstart that recovery and create a little bit more pliability within the muscle so that it can really do its thing in terms of recovery. Just like with stretching, I would recommend a little bit more static pressure for after a workout. So that means like longer duration, maybe like staying in a position on a foam roller. Like if your quads are tight and you just put your quad or you lay on a foam roller and just breathe for 10 reps, like without even moving on the foam roller, it just will allow you to dig a little bit deeper in the muscle through working with your breath. Just give it that nice love. And when it's really tight or whatever, sometimes it takes a while for your muscle to even trust to relax. So having that static pressure of even 30, even recommended up to 2 minutes, once it kind of gets into that relaxed and trusting state, it can really open up. And that's one mistake that I think a lot of people have is when they stretch, they hold a stretch for 10, 20 seconds max. And you should really be holding a stretch after workout for up to 2 minutes. And that's where you're really going to start to get that benefit. Pre-workout, yeah, you just want to get some really good blood flow and get that muscle open and alive. So that's where you're going to incorporate your more dynamic stretching, your more dynamic foam rolling. Foam rolling could also be used as a great awareness technique. So I'll foam roll all over my legs and my body just to see what's tight, where I'm finding my tender spots. And, okay, that spot is needing a little bit more love before, maybe a little bit more mobility before I go into the strength work, because I feel a balance from side to side. And then static for afterwards to kind of just relax and kickstart your sympathetic nervous system to just kind of groove into it and get that recovery started.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think it's important for the functionality aspect is the stretching, the foam rolling, and using it correctly so that we could perform our best. And so going into performance, since that's your specialty as well, what is the difference between, let's say, performance training and or let's say reaching a goal, a health or fitness goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that it would be looking at, I think performance is towards whatever goal you set. We have like we have aesthetic goals, we have maybe like strength goals, we have mobility goals, we have conditioning goals. And I think that performance can kind of go towards all of those. But some people, like for instance, if you want to look a certain way, you might not be looking for as heavy or as, like, I guess, for instance, a performance goal could be, I want to run 100 meters as fast as possible. An aesthetic goal could be, I want to build a great big booty and a thin waist. Going to performance, you might not achieve your aesthetic goals going towards performance. I think performance is just driven on, your body's capability to either, perform something better. Whereas like an aesthetic goal could just be about getting a pump and growing in a certain way, if that makes sense. If I want my client wants to, let's say, just like build bigger legs or look a certain way, then I would probably do more hypertrophy in that area or like muscle growth in that area, and not focus on how much they're lifting or, how strong they're getting, but just making sure that I bring as much blood to that muscle and as much intention to that muscle to have it grow in that area without caring about how heavy their squat is or how much they can deadlift. I think if that's what you're kind of questioning, those are the kind of differences.
All right. Awesome. So let's talk about weight loss a little bit, because I know that's a lot of people's focus, or building muscle. And so what would be the approach if somebody wanted to gain muscle, but as well lose weight? Like, what do they need to know?
Yeah. Your nutrition plays a massive part in this. If you are in a massive caloric surplus, you're going to gain mass and weight. And if you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. And if you kind of maintain your caloric expenditure with your intake, then you're going to maintain, right? And I think that is the biggest thing that people need to focus on. I think that strength training and training in general should always be your foundation. But if you work, let's say I give you the same strength program and it's performance based, and I want you to really increase your weights in a various amount of movements. If you don't eat more than you currently are, or even if you get into if you don't get into that surplus, you're not going to gain massive weight. And I think that's a misconception with women and with lifting, is they think that the second they touch a heavy weight, they're going to gain a bunch of mass and they're going to look bulky and huge. If you don't eat a surplus, then your body can't grow. So you can gain strength and gain and be able to lift heavier and perform better without gaining size if you don't eat a lot. And then same with the other way around is if you don't, I mean, if you do eat a lot, but you don't strength train, or you don't, what am I trying to say here? If you aren't, training and gaining muscle, then you are just going to bulk and maybe not gain the muscle mass. So what I find with my clients, especially when they start, is I'll say, don't change your eating at all. And let's just incorporate and add in strength training and see how your body adapts. With most of my women or female clients, if they're staying in the same maintenance calories and we incorporate strength training, your muscle will eat up more calories throughout the day just doing your normal basic activities than fat does. So you're already going to be having an increased metabolism, an increased, circulation, and an increased immune response. So you're not only going to be healthier, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be more, independent and capable of doing things, but you're not going to be gaining a lot of that size and mass. For instance, I've been through so many different styles of training, and I've went into crazy hypertrophy where I've tried to train for muscle growth, and I've trained for performance with my soccer background, and I've trained a bunch of HIIT styles, but my eating doesn't really change. I've never really eaten in a crazy surplus. I've gained probably 15 pounds from my strength journey, but my size has been completely the same. I have not gained a dress, pant, or shirt size since I was 17 years old. And through my last, almost 15 years, I've done so many different styles of training, but because my eating hasn't changed, my body hasn't changed size, if that makes sense. So again, I think that you can definitely gain strength and increase your performance without gaining size through just maintaining calories or staying in a calorie maintenance or balance. If you want to gain mass in general, it's way easier to gain muscle when you just gain overall mass. So if my clients are looking for muscle growth, then I would say, which is how you get that toned look, how you get that, shape, then I would say just do everything. Have a calorie surplus, strength train really heavy, work towards failure, and build everything together, and then drop your caloric, intake to either a maintenance or a deficit, and you're going to be burning a lot more fat that way, and your lean muscle will stay a lot longer. So you're going to get that shape, and as long as you can trust the process with that bulking and the surplus, then you can appreciate and reap the benefits of then the deficit with seeing all that amazing muscle mass that you've built, but then losing the body fat and getting that nice toned and chiseled look, per se.
I love how you say trust the process, because I have a good friend of mine that competes, and she's been doing shows, and she, of course, everybody she trains, she ups the calories, but it's specifically in the protein load. You're eating, she goes to 1.5 per pound of body weight, ideal body. So as well as, of course, intensifying the training. And then when you want to do a fat loss, then that's when you go back down and you drop, the calorie intake. But I love how you say trust the process, because I think some people would be fearful of loading up more on calories and protein, because they would think oh, I'm going to gain all this weight. But then it's the it's the process of, like you said, the training and the gain, and then the dropping, and then you reduce that body fat, and then you look toned and
I mean,
ripped.
bodybuilders are definitely the extreme when it comes to that, but you can see the journey so well because of it. And yes, that population is definitely where you're going to have to trust the process the most, because they want to get the biggest possible and then they drop everything. So
Yeah.
not only do you see that process a lot, but they are totally having to trust that process and just kind of, lose all feelings about their current status and just know that the end goal they'll get the results that they want. But also know that you don't have to do a massive bulk to a massive deficit. Like, again, bodybuilders are that extreme where they go into that both extremes. And when you're in your own strength training or your training journey, like, you can go very incrementally and just add 1 to 200, calorie surplus per day versus maybe 1,000 calorie surplus. And you'll see that your body change. What I like to say is that it's not like bodybuilders wake up and they're 30 pounds heavier and massively built with muscle. It takes years and so much intention and proper training and dedication to it. And so, like, again, when women are worried that they're going to just massively bulk up, it's like, you will see your body change throughout that entire journey. And you can always scale back, or you can always change if you want to. Like, there are certain times where I went into like a competition and I really wanted to perform well for it. So my body changed a lot and I grew a little bit. And then I looked at photos and I was like, oh, wow, okay. I definitely performed well and my body has seen some changes from that training. But then, it took me a year or 6 months to get to that point. It's not going to stay forever as well. So if you want to change, scale back a little bit. And then what I recommend is go all into it and try to grow and see how hard it is, but also, like, understand what work needs to be done so that you can grow. And then in your body, okay, this is what I need to do to get there. You don't need to go all the way there, but you can start to get there. You can start to see your body change, and then you can always scale it back or do other things. So I think the discovery, like, I think the fear of becoming a pro at something from day one should be like less than the curiosity of trying it. And again, it's not an overnight process. So you can always change your mind and switch it up. And then, our bodies and training is lifelong. So you might as well try a bunch of different methodologies. And it's so funny, once women start strength training, they're worried about growing and building, and then they get so addicted to it. That's like all they want to do. So there's so many great benefits that come with strength training and lifting heavy and pushing your limits that I recommend always trying it. And then if you don't like it, you can always switch it up.
Yeah. Okay. So in addition to the diet, because obviously diet is a key component, but what would be some other things to focus on for staying lean and strong, possibly losing some fat around the areas you don't like? What would be some other recommendations? What are your favorite?
Yeah, the number one priority of like a lifestyle change, even above training, is sleep. If you don't sleep well, not only are your hormones all jacked up, but your cravings are going to be through the roof. It becomes extremely difficult to eat healthy when all you're craving is carbs and fatty and fried foods, which happens when you lack sleep. Sleep is also the only time that your body can fully prioritize recovery. So whether that means you're sick, whether that means you're like, you just crushed a gym session and your body needs to rebuild all that muscle, and it needs to, really prioritize building and recovering. I mean, sleep is the number one time that your body can fully just take care of itself. And if you don't take care of your sleep, not only will it become a lot harder to lose fat, but it'll also be a lot harder to choose the right foods that will lead you in that direction. And yeah, it also just isn't great for your mentality as well, right? You're always maybe not in the best mood when you're sleepy and cranky. So
It's, I've interviewed so many people on health and wellness, array of topics, but like sleep has been the number one
I'm
suggestion. I
sure.
mean,
I'm sure.
it really is. And so if it hasn't hit you guys yet, I mean, this is another person saying how important sleep is. So yes, absolutely. So I've become a super fan of walking for really leaning out, just overall health benefit. But I just noticed how much it has kept me lean. And I know it's talked about a lot today, the benefits and everything. I'm just curious with your clients, is that something that you suggest as well? Is it something you do? What's your opinion on walking for really performance and
Totally.
overall health and
Yeah, I
fitness?
mean, you have to think that your intensity dictates what fuel is being used in the body. So, like anything under 60, 65% intensity is going to be primarily fat used as fuel. Anything above that is carbohydrates being used, which you have a limited supply of. And then the highest intensity, you're going to be using whatever energy is immediately available in your muscle. So staying under that 65%, no matter what you do, the probably the most popular and the easiest to do is walk. Will allow you to burn those calories, and they will be mainly fat calories being used. So I mean, I live in New York, so again, walking is like the number one thing that I feel like most of my clients do already.
That's true.
So
You
training
don't need to tell them to do it more.
and raising the intensity is what I kind of try to promote with my clients. But yes, I think that walking has a massive value add to anyone that's trying to lose weight, or any physical activity that's in that low percentage of low intensity. What I also love is intermittent activity. You know, I live again in a city of hustlers and people that grind all day long, and they might go to the gym and smash an hour long, very high intensity, very everything strength session or cardio session or anything, and then they sit the whole rest of the day on their computer and then sleep. And besides that 1 hour, they're completely sedentary. My number one thing that I probably recommend for my New Yorkers and anyone who is just very much into their work all day long is intermittent workouts. And that could be anything between 3 to 5 minutes. Every hour to 90 minutes, I encourage someone just to get their heart rate up, get their body moving. It could be through high knees, through, a plank, through squats at their desk, even calf raises. Calf raises are termed like your second heart because it really allows you to pump all that blood from a part of the body that's the furthest from the heart. So it really allows that circulation to stay moving. I think intermittent like workouts are probably my biggest advice for anyone that's just sedentary for a lot of the day, because it jumpstarts your metabolism, it jumpstarts your circulation, your digestion, all your body's systems. And it's also great for cognitive function. Like if you're in a brain fog or you just feel sluggish or anything, doing a micro workout will really give you almost like a shot of coffee of energy and keep you moving. So yeah, so my biggest recommendation, just like how we used to in school, like we had a 5 to 10 minute transition period where you'd go from one class to the next, like clear your head, do something completely different and just like get some movement in. If you're in an office, that could be going up 5 flights of stairs and coming right back down, or going to the water station, grabbing some water, coming back and doing like 20 squats before you sit back down. There's so many great health benefits that come with that that help combat the health risks that being sedentary, brings.
That advice is so powerful and so simple, but nobody does it. I mean, like the simple things, like I think people that have a dog are luckily I think they have that extra benefit. Like you got to go walk the dog. So just simply just get outside, go walk the dog for, 5-10 minutes or whatnot, just to break up your schedule. But like you said, I think a lot of people get in that slump from sitting all day. You get tired looking at the screen. And so just by getting outside or doing, like you said, quick, up and down movement or whatever, you might not go to think to have another coffee, let's say, to pick you up to get through the rest of your workday. So I love that Such great advice. I love it. The other thing I was wondering is, what do you think is some of the fitness advice out there today that you think is a problem that's being spread around?
Oh, fitness advice that is a problem. Fitness advice. I would say it actually comes more from, and this comes from like a sustainability and like a longevity perspective a little bit, but we are in such a consumer market, and like we are in such a like add this and add that and do this and do that. And I think that so much can be said for simplifying things. And, you know, like in terms of when someone starts their fitness journey, they're like, what are the 20 supplements I should be taking to get me to my goals? And I think like taking things away and simplifying things and not making things so complicated is a huge thing. Excuse me one second. I think we're in such a like a marketing forward world with social media and everything where so many startups are being created to try to create value by adding all these things. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Hope we can cut this out a little bit. Yeah. But I think that we're in such a, of like a selling market of pushing products and pushing training and excuse me. All right, I am back. Pushing training and pushing products and pushing different diets and XYZ. And I think that they're like, I really try to, before I offer anything that anyone should add to their routine or lifestyle, for them to really write me what their day-to-day looks like in terms of fuel, in terms of, you know, medications, supplements, everything, and training. And we try to find ways that we can kind of slow things down. And, you know, again, simplify things and cut out the noise a little bit. Like for instance, on Prime Day, like everything was pushed and it's like, buy this, buy that. And this is your day to do it. And my assistant was like, let's put out a post of all of our top Amazon products to push. And I go, I don't want to push anything. I want people to not spend and to not buy and to, you know, like your body can get so much, and you have to think about evolution and us as like animals and just like human beings. And we don't need, like, we just need good food, good water, good sleep, some good movement. And that is all the recipe that you need for success. I think that people sometimes obsess about all the little things or things that people just try to sell them. And ultimately, I don't think we really need it.
I think that's really awesome that you mentioned that, because I do think some people get stuck because they're like, oh, I need all this stuff, or what is this next thing? And that's why, like, one of the things you see very often is all these fitness programs, like lose 5 pounds in 5 days or whatever it may be, like all these things that, you know, people almost get inundated with, and so they're confused of really what to do. But I do want to actually ask you, because I love supplements, so I will ask you, even though you just said we shouldn't add more things in, but I do think there are some beneficial supplements that are talked about, especially today, that really do create a difference in performance and even adding to longevity and, you know, our health benefits. What are your, like, if you were to say your top 3 or 5 recommended supplements that you think are something that we should consider adding in? Doesn't mean we have to, but consider.
Totally. Yes. I guess like in the performance side, I think that there is a great place for creatine, and it is like the most studied you know, supplement out there, and it's proven to just really have a lot of great benefits in terms of, and that doesn't mean like you're going to get massive and see like huge strength results from it. But I think that there's so many great benefits in terms of recovering from exercise and giving you the proper fuel to reach your goals a little bit more. And it's just been a great supplement that has been studied very well for men and women that I think have a lot of great benefits. So if you were to supplement with something and you don't have a lot of meat, I think the creatine is a great option. Um, I also think that fruits and veggies, like you're in LA, so you have the best, like in terms of when it comes to like food, diet, and what's available out there. I think sometimes, especially like in New York City, it's in a very stressful state. A lot of people crave and maybe push more towards like carb heavy stuff, or stick with like the sandwiches, or things that maybe aren't so packed with fruits and vegetables. And so I do think that like a nice green supplement, or like having something that pushes a little bit more of those nutrients is great to have. Honestly, before having any supplement, I always get like a nice report, like either a blood report or a nutrient report, to see what you're deficient in. Because
Yeah.
like I said, like what you're having out there, and like if you have a really well balanced diet, you probably don't need anything. So your body treats a deficiency the same way as it treats like when you overconsume on a nutrient or vitamin. So if you're hitting all your numbers and your markers, then I would just say continue doing what you're doing, because that's amazing. But as our food supply, I feel like, becomes less dense with nutrients, and doesn't really like, I feel like our food in general is starting to lack in nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And so, um, yeah, I think just finding, eating more foods of things that you're deficient in, and greens are always great. I mean, I watched this great TED talk years ago about this woman who essentially prolonged her MS because she switched to having like 5 to 7 cups of leafy greens a day, and just like the
Wow.
amount of nutrients that she had, and everything. And I think fruit and vegetables are amazing for fiber and for digestion, but I think that sometimes the nutrients in them are overlooked. Microgreens are amazing because they're packed a little bit extra with nutrients. But if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of fruits and vegetables in your day-to-day diet, then I would recommend like a nice extra greens, or like a plant supplement. But otherwise, like I know that, I mean, even for me as well, like hitting your protein needs is very hard. So even though more than, try not to have more than one meal with a processed protein, like a protein powder or protein bar or whatever. Like I try to say limit to one meal a day, where you have that, but sometimes it does really help hit your numbers. So having like a nice clean ingredient profile of a protein powder is epic. I work with Gainful. They, all of their proteins only have about 3 to 5 ingredients in them, and they're
That's
all
great.
very clear, and they're all whole ingredients. So I trust that. Like whenever you look at any label, whether it's any type of food or supplement, if you don't recognize any of the names on there, then you probably shouldn't be having it. Or if it has like over 20 ingredients on it, then please put it back. Because I think one of the biggest detriments to our health these days is really just consuming things that are toxic and not organic, and harmful for our body.
Yeah. And based on you saying that, I think a lot of people that actually have excess weight is actually excess inflammation.
100%. 100%. When I stopped
Yeah.
drinking and stopped like consuming foods, like I don't even have protein bars anymore. Like I try not to have any processed food at all, but my skin and my face changed so much in terms of just like losing puffiness and losing that inflammation, the rest of my body as well. And like I'm on my fixed gear bike, I ride all throughout the city, but I do that intermittently to head to my different clients throughout the day. And I think just getting in like those little spurts of movement throughout the day has just been amazing in terms of, continuing the body's processes, and keeping
Yeah.
things moving. And I think one of those things you mentioned earlier is like, what's some advice on like kind of how to start, and what are the things that are pushed too much. I think that sometimes people think in order for them to get results, or to get healthy, they need to schedule in an hour and a half of gym time and really get after it and like do this whole structured program. And yes, to build muscle, you do need to spend some time and attention on it and be in the gym for a little bit, at least 45 minutes to bring, good attention to that muscle. But if you're just looking for overall health, there's so much that can be said just getting any type of movement in. Like I said, with those 3 to 5 minute workouts or 3 to 5 minute spurts of movement, or even just like getting your body moving throughout the day for a little bit. It's just, there's so much to be said for that, that I think gets overlooked because people think it's either all or none. And there's such a great like in between that you can still benefit from.
Oh, so good. Yeah, so good. That's what I think for myself, at least, the walking really has
Totally.
helped with any inflammation and also helped with even gut health and to get things moving. I just think there's so many benefits. Like you said, it's just these micro movements and how that actually influences the inflammation in our body, I think is ginormous, if you want to say.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. I want to hear about because I think the goal, at least in everything you share, I think is longevity, sustainability, and really creating a lifestyle so that you don't have to go on these diet plans and these like certain goals for this time period or whatnot. So you have a program that you started, Take Off with Meg. I would love if you could kind of plug that in and tell us a little bit about that, because I know it's accessible to everybody since it's an online program.
Yeah, I do, or I have like ebooks that are great for kind of just like do on your own. I wrote out all the descriptions for each month and each day so that you kind of you understand the journey and what you're working towards. So I do have a few ebooks that pretty much just templated different goals and different directions. Like I have a kettlebell only program, an intro to strength program. So if you just want to get started and get the hang of it, more like intro movements that kind of progress as you go in complexity versus in performance. If someone has like a performance goal, then I just say, pick the most simple moves that you're really confident in and push the actual limit in terms of strength and conditioning, because that's where you're going to get the most adaptation and change. But if you're someone who's just like, I just really want to get confident in a bunch of different movements and learn different movements, then I would progress through complexity instead. So I have programs that progress in complexity. I have programs that progress in terms of just like overall performance, whether it be strength or conditioning or both. And then I offer like kind of a second tier where you have a more customized program. So we do a nice full hour consultation, whether you're in New York City or you're over the camera, just like we are now, in a gym setting. And I would take you through the same thing that I would do in a one-on-one session where I go through a whole movement analysis. We go over your goals in fine detail. And then I pretty much create a custom plan for you. And then every month we meet for 15 to 30 minutes and dive into a nice review of how the last month went and what direction we want to take this new month into. And that allows my clients, because just like how when I learned in school, like when you learn anything from a research-driven approach, everything is controlled. And so when I started working with clients, I would build out a 3-month program. So a client came to me and they're like, Meg, I got 2 hours of sleep last night. I'm not going to be hitting that PR that we were set to do today. And then the entire program gets derailed because you set everything, every parameter is so detailed. And the first thing I learned in New York City is nothing is in your control, because training is probably not your first priority. Your living, your career, your family, and everything kind of comes first. So being able to have that customized approach where every month, we kind of just go over what are you want to prioritize this month. You have a crazy workload in the front half of the month. Let's prioritize work and just get some sort of movement in to get your body moving and get all the benefits that will help you perform better in work. And then, the next 2 weeks of the month, we have a little bit more time because that project is finished and you can give back to yourself a little bit. All right, let's push the envelope and try to progress and maybe lose a couple pounds or gain a couple pounds in your strength lifts throughout that time. So I kind of work with people kind of depending on what they want and what their budget is, depending if they want to just have something they do on their own and progress in one direction, or if they want me to be by their side a little bit more.
Amazing. And where can people find out about that?
My website is takeoffwithmeg.com. You can also follow me at Meghan with an H _Hayden _ or my company page is at Takeoff with Meg.
Awesome. Of course, that would be in the show notes. So good. And you share so much on your Instagram as well. So everybody go check that out just for like some free content. And she obviously looks badass in her exercises, and she has a badass body. So go check that out. But I want to ask you a final question I ask all my guests. So if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned, and you need a shout out to the world, what would that piece of wisdom be and why?
I mean, this is such a, overused, but I think like let your cup overfill into others versus trying to give from an empty cup. And I think so much this most of my clients and I think a lot of women face this, but I don't want to separate women from men, but I think that so often we're so used to taking care of everyone around us and the jobs that we need to perform and do. And your body is something that you have lifelong, but it is also extremely resilient to death, and it will stay alive as much as possible, but that doesn't mean that you should push that limit and test it. I think that we do need to prioritize. Another thing with fitness is we sometimes think about how many calories we can burn and how much work we can put into our body. And like, I think that so often we just need to take care of ourselves a little bit more and focus on the recovery aspect. You should be recovering always harder than you train. That doesn't mean resting. That means, doing what you need to do to your body to build it up and to allow it to perform its best. Anyone that has strength goals and wants to, beat their body up in terms of growing muscle mass or hitting a certain, PR goal also needs to make sure that their body is cared for to be able to hit them consistently. Because again, once you hit that goal, you probably want to continue going. So the more you can take care of your vessel, the more you can avoid doctor's visits. And that's probably the biggest thing I see in my 91-year-old dad is, all the things that he did throughout his life to just take care of himself. He got ejected from a plane twice because he was a pilot. And like most pilots and stuff that happens to you have terrible back issues and you have like all these, things that just start to add on throughout your life. And what really opened up my eyes to seeing him from a young age is that his hinge and how he bends over and the things that he does in his daily life, the way that he moves is so mechanically sound. And for him, his perspective is if I move my back in a bad way, I will hurt, or like I will experience some sort of pain. But to me, I was like, wow, he moves incredible. And he's really taking care of like his movement and how he functions throughout the day. So I think, even though you might be doing things without weight, like bending down to pick up your shoes or pick up anything that's light or whatever, always just be mindful of your mechanics and how your body is moving throughout the day. Always make sure that, you're stacked well, you're anatomically, sound and things are balanced because it does catch up to you later on in life. So yeah, I think the biggest things are recover harder than you train and make sure you really take care of your body because it is something that we're going to have forever.
Yep. Absolutely. I love that. I love that advice. It's so true. I think just be mindful. I think posture is very underrated and it's so key to alleviating pain. But that's another topic too.
That could be a whole other hour.
Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much. There's so much in this interview. So I so appreciate your time and everybody go check out Megan. Everything will be in the show notes. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me. It was, again, such a gift. Thank you.